You want the hurting? One, two, three. Woo! Man! That was some good run right there. Here's some of that. You did. You got me on the big end. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, just took that R1 to Pound Town, baby. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JoeSTi here. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to do a review video on my 2018 R1, standard edition R1, not the R1M. I had a few people ask me to do it, and I thought it was a good idea now that I've put some miles on it. I've done one track day on it at NCM. I have done a lot of street riding on it, so I've got a good feel for how it acts on both of those. It is currently the only performance mods I have. I've got the 3/4 Akropovich system with the titanium link pipe stock header on this bike. I've got the Woodcraft goodies for the engine to save it just in case I go down. I've got it on the other side too. They are beautiful machined aluminum. They look great on the bike. You can get different color of the actual sliders on there. I've got the Wilmette Tech frame sliders, back and front as well. I've got tank grips on it. I love these. They do fantastic because once you buy an R1, you'll quickly realize that there is no grip to hold yourself to on the tank. Riding it without those is just, it feels all kinds of goofy. You're sliding all over. You don't feel confident. That transformed the way this bike handles. Well, obviously not the actual handling of it, but how confident you are on the bike. So we're going to go out. I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. I'm not going to hit it super hard. It's decent weather, but as you can see, there is a ton of salt. They just salted because we got 3 inches of snow the other day, and today's 55, so it's super nice out. I'll go through what I like, what I don't like about this bike, and see what you guys think. All right, so before we take off, I'll give you guys a little bit of how she sounds. Definitely a lot throatier with it. It's not a super loud exhaust though. It's got a really nice tone to it. But I mean, in some of my videos, I had people ask me if I had the stock exhaust still on it, and no, it's actually a lot louder than the stock exhaust. The stock exhaust is not loud at all. As you can see, has some pretty good throat to it. Sounds fantastic up there in the high rev range. Still on the stock Battle Axe RS10 tires. Love them. They're probably one of the favorite tires I've used so far. I like them better than the Q3 Pluses I had before. I still got a little bit of stuff to get off from the road or the track on that side. I've got it almost all the way off on this side, but it's been cold, so we haven't been hammering it too hard. As far as the tack is amazing on this bike. I love the LCD screen. It's got all your drive modes on it. Average fuel is 21 miles per gallon, and that's about 600 miles worth of hammering on this thing. I do not daily ride this. I do not commute on it. When it's going out, I'm hammering on it most of the time. You go in here through your settings. You got your power. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This does not actually give the bike more or less power. It's all the throttle response. I like riding on 4. It's a little less touchy than the other settings. But like Brian on his R1, what do you ride on, 2? Power setting? You ride on 4 as well. Okay, so we both like the easier transition. It's not as touchy in 4. Traction control, I leave it down at 1. Slide control, I leave it 2. Launch control, obviously we don't need that right now. Quick shift, you've got 2 different settings. You have your quicker shifts and you're a little bit slower for street riding. I always leave it on quicker. Obviously quick shift down, your auto blip, always leave that on. Right now lift control is off. When I go to the track, I do put it in 1. It kind of hovers it a little bit. Sorry for the distraction, guys. We got some childs over here, but we're gonna go out and give you a little bit of what it feels like. we're not going to be hitting it hard because Tyler just got his first motorcycle. Freaking ZX10 is his first bike. So we're not going to leave him or anything, but I don't want to hammer it and take off from him, you know what I mean? So we'll be waiting on him. But good. But if you guys want, I'll ride that here soon, give you a little bit of a review on it. It's got a full Brock system and everything. It's a nice little bike. Alright, so most of you guys watching this are either thinking about getting an R1 or you just want to see what it's like. I don't have my mirrors on this right now because I used this as a track bike not too long ago, so I just haven't put them back on. Or blinkers. Yeah, my blinkers aren't on here either yet. But so, as far as daily riding, if you're going to buy this bike to be like a commuter or ride all the time, I would highly suggest you go and sit on it before you do. I've ridden a lot of the super bikes, the top class super bikes, like the S1000. I've got an H2. I've rode my buddy's Ducati Panigale 1199. I sat on his ZX10. I haven't rode it yet. But of all these bikes, this is the most uncomfortable riding position. It's the sportiest riding position. The 1199 is pretty close. That's another very uncomfortable bike. But it's phenomenal for that reason on the track. It puts you in great position on the track. Super sporty, super confident position. But it's hard to ride for a long time, especially on the streets. After about 3 hours, I'm done. Like, my back's toast. Oh, yeah? What a good. So as far as riding on the track with this thing, it is phenomenal. I mean, everybody knows the new generation R1s are fantastic on the track. Super confidence inspiring. I took my S1000, I had a 2015 S1000, I took it to Mid-Ohio, and then I took this to NCM. And what I can tell you is, while the S1000 is a good track bike, it's really confident and everything, the transition of flipping back and forth, this is so much lighter on its feet. That's what I was telling Brian when I came back from some of my sessions on the S1000. I was like, dude, this thing is wearing me out. Like, I would come back like, man, I wish I had something that was more flickable. And this is by far leaps and bounds more flickable than the S1000. And it almost feels, it's not as light as the 600 obviously, but it almost feels like it, when you compare it to something like the S1000, that just is not as light on its feet. The brakes on this thing are very good from the factory. Not as good as like the Brembos, I would say, straight from the gate, and a lot of that has to do with the brake pads that are actually on this bike are not the best from the factory. I mean, they do well. I did a track day on the stock brake pads. I've got other brake pads. I've got the XJR LX, I don't know which one it is, but yeah, I've got other brake pads to put on here. That will help a lot. Where most of my debacle with the brakes is the feel of the stock lever. It kind of feels like that wood board type of pull on it. Like, they've got a ton of bite and a ton of power, but it just doesn't feel like where the S1000, you grab a handful of brake and it lets you know you grabbed a handful of brake. These, you got to apply more pressure. Brakes are definitely adequate though. Very good brakes. Just, I would suggest a pad swap as one of the first things. Do performance mod. As far as power output, this is up there, and I would say the top 90% of what super bikes are now. You know, it's not as fast as the S1000. I would say the ZX10s are a little bit quicker, but it has a ton of power. I mean, too much power if you don't know what you're doing at the track. But this one has the 3/4 system, and it's also got the Superbike Unlimited flash on it. Really woke this bike up. The throttle transition's much easier. I mean, it's so much easier to moderate the throttle now that I have the flash on this thing. It like leap and bounds better than it was stock, and it really woke this bike up. Like, we were riding the other day, it was 50 degrees, so it was cold. This thing was a monster. It was doing 3rd gear power wheelies. Like, legit, not Hillcrest, 3rd gear power wheelies. That surprised me greatly. So the fuel economy, as you can see, 21.4 miles per gallon is, most people would say that's atrocious, but you got to understand, I've been beating the dog crap out of this thing. Like, I don't do much riding like this here. Most of the time we take it out, we're either doing a track day, or I'm taking it out to the back roads and hammering on it. Like, lots of wheelies, lots of high-speed runs, lots of hard cornering. So I would say for a liter bike, you get what you get, you know. You're not buying a liter bike for gas mileage. Just be honest with yourself. The stock suspension on this bike is pretty good. It's no freaking Öhlins or anything, but you know, the reason I bought this is I'm going to be using this as my track bike and street bike. Like anytime I go to the track, this is going to be the one I take. And I got the standard model because what I read was a lot of people that get serious into racing end up ripping out the electronics Öhlins on the R1M and putting, you know, regular Öhlins on it. So there's no point in spending more money for the R1M and then ripping out the things you spent more money on. And in my head, that's just the way I see it. Now, if you're not fully tracking it, yeah, the R1M out of the gate is a better bike. So get the R1M if you're mainly using it for street. Oh yeah, the R1M, if you do street and track, but you're not super competitive or anything at the track, like we just do fun track days, it would still be phenomenal at the track in stock form, obviously. It's just when people get super serious, they end up ripping that out. So I don't know how serious I'm going to get with this bike, but I'd rather spend less and have more money for mods. We actually got these as leftovers, so me and Brian both bought ours on the same day. They're both 18s. We got them discounted down to $13,500 for the purchase of them. So just know, if you're going to buy one, look for a leftover, look for one that a dealer's been sitting on. You can get a good deal on it. Like, that's $3,000 off MSRP on this year model. So I know the 2020s just came out and everything, and everybody's going to be looking at those, and I have not rode one, so I can't tell you how much better of a bike it is. In my mind, I would still save the money and go for an 18 or a 19 if you can get it significantly discounted like that. Most bikes nowadays do have the auto up and down shift. Like my BMW has it. The H2's got a quick shifter. It doesn't have auto blip, but I can add it. But this bike, the auto blip on this bike and the quick shifter is really good. I love the quick shifter on this bike. And you don't know how much you want an auto blipper until you go to the track and you're freaking coming out of the corners, not having to worry about the clutch and not having to worry about anything for getting set up. We caught a Tesla. But dear God, this thing is so confidence inspiring, it's crazy. Like anytime I come up to a corner, it just begs me to lean a little deeper. It just falls in. Now, looking at the type of people that are going to buy this bike, would I recommend this as a motorcycle purchase? You got to really be honest with yourself what you want out of the bike. If it's going to be an everyday commuter, no, I would not want you to buy this bike. But if you're doing like what we do, you mainly go out and do back roads, canyons, you know, corners, racing like that, you know, absolutely buy this bike. It is phenomenal. The amount of bike you get for money is ridiculous. Holy tank slapper! Woo-wee! That, guys, is why you get a steering dampener from the factory. That's the first tank slapper. Oh yeah, that was a heavy tank slap. Yeah. That's why you want a steering stabilizer, guys, because that would have been really bad. Now, from the factory, yeah. From the factory, it has a steering stabilizer, but it's not the best. You know what I mean? Obviously, like, that happened because I came down off of that wheelie at an angle. But basically, if I would have had a great steering stabilizer, it would have greatly stopped that a lot faster. This bike does get a lot of head shake, like coming out of corners when you really power on and it's light on the front foot, you know. It's got a ton of head shake. And so steering stabilizer would be recommended. But yeah, I mean, just don't be an idiot like me out here doing freaking wheelies and come down with a wheel turned a little bit cockeyed. It kind of makes you realize that sometimes you need to bring a second diaper with you when you're out here doing wheelies and get some tank slappers like that, you know. Now, the lift control on this bike, guys, is phenomenal. Probably one of the best lift controls I've ridden on any bike that I've ridden. I use it 100% of the track. It'll give you all the power you need coming out of a corner to keep the front wheel, you know, maybe 6 inches to a foot off the ground, and you can just be hammered on it. Like, we were at NCM, and I never once had to get out of the throttle because the front end was coming up, where it definitely would have been. Like, you get on it more than half throttle in second gear, and it's doing a power wheelie with it off. So keep that in mind. Super good electronics. Yamaha really stepped their game up with this. The electronics on this bike are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Another reason why you should buy this over some of the other brands is the reliability. The Yamaha is going to be a lot more reliable than, say, a Ducati. I mean, no hits at Ducati here, but I mean, if you get a Ducati or an Aprilia or something like that, odds are you're going to have a lot more issues than if you buy an R1. Not saying the R1's bulletproof, but these freaking Japanese people know how to make a motorcycle. It's the same thing in the car world. Like, all the most reliable engines and transmissions and everything is all from Japanese makes. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry if you're all America. Like, I got it. I own an F-150. I understand America and stuff, but it's just not as reliable as the Japanese stuff. So the only things I can really fault this bike at being bad at is being comfortable, but you're not buying the bike to be comfortable. You know you're buying a super sport, and you know you're buying one of the most aggressive stance super sports there are. And the other thing is, as you can see, I put to the test today, the steering stabilizer is not that great from the factory. At least it's got one, but I mean, unless you want to unload a freaking crap in your pants, you don't want to test it, you know? You don't want to put it to the test like I just did. That's the first time I've had actually a tank slapper on this bike, though, and I've done a lot of high-speed wheelies. I just came down with the wheel cocked a little bit too far to the right. Alright guys, so final thoughts on the R1. Absolutely phenomenal bike. I'm never getting rid of this thing, at least for the foreseeable future. I'm going to use it for my track bike and my back road carver. If that's your plans with the bike, like aggressive back roads and some track duty or all track duty, either way, you can't go wrong with this bike. Just know that if you want something that's mainly for the street, there are bikes that will do this stuff pretty dang well that are more comfortable. Like, I always say, I think the best rounded bike there is for comfort, cornering, S1000. All day, has a ton of power all day long. Nothing against the R1. Obviously, I own the R1 and I got rid of the S1000. But I foresee another S1000 in my future. I'll just add it to this bike. I'm not going to get rid of this bike. And if that happens, I may dedicate this to track only. So, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts on the R1. If I hit all the points that you were looking at, you know, there's still probably, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can talk about on this bike, but I just wanted to give you a general rundown. But if I could, get a like on the videos, smash that subscribe button. Till next time.